In 1932, a black mother walked into a grocery store with 40 cents. The economy said her family shouldn't survive the week. She fed 6 people for 4 days, and nobody ever wrote her name in a business book. Understand what she was up against, because it wasn't bad luck, it was design. When the Depression hit, our people were the last hired and the first fired. That was the saying because that was the policy. In some cities, half of all black workers had no work at all. And the help, the relief, the government programs was built with doors we couldn't walk through. The historians will back every word of that, and I'll bring the receipts as we go. So the fight moved to the only battlefield they couldn't rig, her kitchen. And on that battlefield, she was undefeated. Tonight, I'm counting down 25 ways black mothers outsmarted the 1930s economy, 25 make-do meals, and inside every single one, a strategy sharp enough to teach in a business school. This is not a sad story. Sad stories are about people who lost. This is a winner's tape. We're studying it. Number 5 is the one where she served her family the part of the meal rich folks poured down the drain, and it was the most nourishing thing on the table. Number 2 is how she turned a poisonous weed from the ditch into a safe supper with knowledge that worked like a family secret. And number one is the strategy that will make you see your own grandmother's whole working life differently. It's the truest one. Stay for it. Number 25, grow what they couldn't take. Every campaign needs a base, and hers was out the back door, the garden, a patch of collards and beans, a few hens, maybe a hog if the landlord allowed it. And pay attention to why this was the foundation move. Every egg out of that yard was income the economy couldn't tax, cut, or deny. Wages could vanish. Relief could be refused. The store could charge what it pleased. The garden didn't answer to any of them. Greens in the morning, eggs at noon, tomatoes put up for January, food with no middleman and no gatekeeper. You want to beat a rigged game? Shrink the part of your life that has to play it. That's what a garden was, not a hobby, a withdrawal. She pulled her family's survival out of their economy and put it back in her own 2 hands. First move on the board, and everything else tonight stands on it. Number 24, Leftovers Reborn. Now watch her run a play modern chefs get praised for inventing. Last night's grits, poured into a pan, chilled solid overnight, sliced into slabs this morning, and fried in hot grease until every edge crackled gold. Same food, brand new supper, 0 new pennies. That's the strategy. In her kitchen, nothing was ever finished. It was just between appearances. Cold rice became rice cakes in the skillet. Yesterday's cornbread became tonight's dressing. Sunday's beans came back Tuesday, thicker and better. Every pot got a second life, sometimes a third, each one dressed up enough that the children never once said, again. Added up. 1 cooking, 2 or 3 meals. She wasn't stretching food, she was multiplying it. Restaurants today sell crispy fried grit cakes as a small plate for $12. She invented that dish out of arithmetic and a refusal to waste. The $12 just took 90 years to show up. Number 23, the penny stretching foundation. Here's the part nobody romanticizes, so I will. She was a purchasing department. When the money came, if the money came, it went first to the foundation. Cornmeal, dried beans, rice, flour, a little fat, the cheap, heavy staples that couldn't spoil, couldn't fail, and could each become 10 different suppers. Why those? Study the numbers like she did. A pound of dried beans cost about a dime and fed the family for 2 days. Cornmeal made bread, mush, dumplings, coating, and dessert. Rice took on the flavor of whatever pennies could buy alongside it. The rule underneath: buy nothing that only does one job. Every purchase had to be a team player. And notice what she never bought: anything ready-made, anything with somebody else's labor priced in. She supplied the labor. Labor was the one thing the Depression couldn't repossess. Foundation laid. Now watch what she built on it. Number 22, the grease economy. There was a bank in her kitchen, and it sat right next to the stove. The grease can, every strip of bacon, every piece of fatback, every fried anything paid a deposit. The drippings, poured off and saved, never wasted. And she made withdrawals all week: a spoonful to fry the cornbread, a spoonful to gloss the greens, a spoonful to start the gravy. Understand what that can really was. Flavor cost money, unless you banked it. That smoky, seasoned fat carried the taste of meat into meals that had no meat in them. It made Tuesday's beans taste like Sunday's table. Rich folks bought butter and threw drippings away, paying twice for what she got free. That was the whole Depression in one comparison. They had accounts downtown. She had a coffee can that never once closed, never once denied her, and compounded interest in flavor. Tell me in the comments, whose stove had the can? And what did she keep it in? Number 21, eat the whole plant. The grocery man sold vegetables. She bought plants, and there's a difference. When she bought turnips, she was buying two foods: the roots for one supper, the tops, the greens, for another. Beets came with beet greens. The potato peels scrubbed and fried crisp in that banked grease made a dish children fought over. The stems, the tops, the outsides that other households trimmed into the trash. In her kitchen, that was the free half of the purchase. And here's the twist the modern world had to relearn. The tops she ate for free often carried more iron and vitamins than the roots she paid for. Nutrition scientists confirmed it decades later. Her mother's mother knew it first. One price, two suppers, nothing in the bin. Any store that sold her a vegetable had accidentally sold her groceries for 2 nights, and never even knew it lost the negotiation. Number 20, free sweetness from the wild. Sugar was money, so dessert grew in the fence rows. Come summer, she sent the children out with pails, and the land itself paid the candy bill. Blackberries along the ditches, dewberries, wild plums, muscadines climbing the trees, persimmons dropping sweet after first frost. Free for anyone with the knowledge and the willingness to brave the thorns. Those berries came home to a cobbler, fruit cooked down, concentrated and dark, a lattice of biscuit dough over the top, the whole thing bubbling like it cost something. The only purchased ingredients were flour and a little fat. The sweetness was foraged, and the labor was family. And catch the double play. It fed the children and trained them. Every child who filled a pail learned what grew where, what ripened when, which vine was food and which wasn't. A working map of free calories, downloaded young. The Depression took the money for sweets. It could not repossess the blackberries. Number 19, the one-pot stretch. Now the math class. 1 pot, 1 fire, 1 protein, maybe a single hot dog, a scrap of salt meat, 1 link of sausage. And her assignment, make it feed 6. Watch the method. Slice that 1 hot dog into 30 thin coins and stir it through a full pot of beans or macaroni and tomatoes. And now every single bowl has meat in it. Nobody got the meat. Everybody got the meat. Folks called dishes like that Hoover stew, and the name was a middle finger with a spoon in it, named for the president they blamed. She could season a whole pot's worth of pride into it anyway. The strategy has a name now. They call it protein stretching in the food science books. She called it Tuesday. One pot also meant one fire's worth of fuel and one pot to wash, because wood cost, kerosene cost, and her time was the scarcest ingredient in the whole house. Efficiency wasn't a virtue, it was a weapon. Put the spoon down a minute. You need the numbers, because I told you the game was rigged, and I don't deal in claims I can't back. When the Depression bottomed out, about 1 in 4 American workers had no job. For black workers, it was roughly 1 in 2. In Atlanta by 1934, the historians put it near 70%. Last hired, first fired wasn't a folk saying. It was how the labor market actually ran, and the Library of Congress and every serious historian of the era will tell you the same. Jobs that had been called Negro work, waiting tables, cleaning, elevator operating, suddenly weren't, the moment white men needed them. So hold both truths at once. The unemployment was a design, and the kitchen was the counter-design. Every move on this countdown, the grease can, the whole plant, the one-pot stretch, was a line item in a war she was winning quietly, every day, against arithmetic that said she couldn't. So here's what I want you to do for the rest of this countdown. Keep a ledger in your head. Every dollar the system denied her on one side, every move she answered with on the other. We're going to total that ledger at number 1, and when we do, I'm going to show you the one entry that pays for everything else. Don't lose count. Number 18, make the cheap cut taste rich. The butcher's case was a class system, and she beat it with chemistry. The rich bought the loin. She bought the neck bones, the shanks, the oxtails, the cuts priced like trash because they were tough, but tough is just a code, and she had the key. Brown it hard, then cook it low and slow with liquid, and all that connective tissue melts into gelatin, the very thing that makes rich food taste rich. So the 10-cent bones came out of her pot silkier than the dollar steak came off anybody's grill. That's not luck. That's collagen. The food scientists will draw you the diagram today. She ran the process by hand, by feel, by inheritance. Here's the scoreboard that matters. Those throwaway cuts, the oxtails, the neck bones, now sell at a premium in the same markets that once nearly gave them away. The world didn't discover new meat. It finally caught up to her palate. She was simply 50 years early, at 1/10 of the price. Number 17, the parts they threw away. Same war, deeper trench. Past the cheap cuts were the free parts, the ones the butcher was half glad to be rid of. Chicken feet, gizzards, livers, tails. And here's the insight she ran on. The parts nobody wanted were the parts that worked. The feet and joints, full of the collagen that turns plain water into golden body and soul broth. The livers, carrying more iron than the fancy cuts ever held. Chicken feet, cleaned and simmered, made a stock so rich it went nearly solid when it cooled. The mark, chefs will tell you now, of a proper broth. Gizzards dredged and fried over rice with pan gravy. A supper with texture for pennies. The economy priced food by status. She priced it by what it could do. And when the status pricing said worthless, she heard discounted. Every part the market threw away and she caught. Write it in the ledger. It's adding up. Number 16. Free protein from field and river. The stores could set any price they wanted. The river never got the memo. A cane pole, some patience, and a stretch of muddy water meant catfish. A rabbit box out by the field, a wooden trap a child could check before school, meant meat that cost exactly nothing. Squirrel, possum, whatever the land offered. Protein with no bill attached. And this wasn't luck-based living. It was skill-based. Where the fish ran, which bait, how to set a box, how to clean the catch, how to make it delicious. A full survival curriculum, taught father to son and mother to daughter, tuition free. Friday night's fish fry, cornmeal crusted, hot out of the grease, was the celebration form of the strategy. It looked like a party. It was a party. It was also a food bill beaten to zero by knowledge. The economy controlled the wages and the store shelves. It never did figure out how to charge the river. Number 15, put up the harvest. August was a bank deposit, and canning was how she made it. When the garden overran, tomatoes by the bushel, beans by the row, she put it up. Jars boiling on the stove, the kitchen like a steam engine. And by September, a wall of full mason jars stood in the pantry like money in the vault. Beans got strung on thread and dried into what our folks called leather breeches, hanging by the stove, no jar even required. The strategy is time-shifting. Move summer's surplus into winter's scarcity. January prices never touched her because January was already sitting on her shelf, sealed in July. Now, Walter's honesty note, because we keep it real on this channel. Today's food scientists at the National Center for Home Food Preservation will tell you some old-time canning methods need updating for safety. And if you take up canning, learn it their way. But the strategy itself? Perfect then, perfect now. Store the fat months. Starve the lean ones of their power. Second pause. The ledger's filling up on her side. So let me show you what the other side was writing. When the New Deal came, it came with fine print. The Social Security Act of 1935, the great safety net, left out two whole categories of worker, farm laborers and domestic workers. Now ask yourself who filled those jobs in the South. The lawyer, Charles Hamilton Houston, stood before Congress that very year and said what everybody could count for themselves, that the way the act was written, it ran in effect like a sieve, with the holes just big enough for the majority of our people to fall through. Whatever was in every legislator's heart, the arithmetic of who got left out was not subtle. The historians have documented the same pattern in the relief lines and the federal programs. Help that thinned out just as it reached our block. Understand what that means for our story tonight. The net everybody else stood over. She cooked without one. Every jar she put up, every trap in the woods, every penny stretched. But because she carried that genius entirely in her head, we are dangerously close to losing it forever. That is exactly why I put together the Heritage Kitchen Collection. I spent months doing the math for you, writing down the exact cast iron temperatures and make-do measurements so you don't have to guess. It's a completely printable guide you can download to your phone or computer right now. Click the first link in the description, get your copy, and make sure that survival math stays in your family forever. Keep the ledger going. Number 14, sweet treats from nothing. Here's a line item the economists never counted. Joy. A childhood needs candy and birthday pie, depression or no depression, and she refused to let her children's memories go bare. So she engineered sweetness out of the bottom shelf, molasses boiled with a little butter, then pulled. Two people, opposite ends, folding and stretching until it turned glossy and chewy. The pulling itself became the party. And the vinegar pie, hear me out, sugar, a spoon of vinegar, a little flour and butter, baked in a crust. The vinegar's tang plays the role of lemon, and the whole thing comes out bright and sweet tart like a lemon pie that never met a lemon. Some family recipe cards honestly called it mock lemon, so the children wouldn't ask questions. That's the strategy. Never let scarcity write the emotional record. Ask anybody who grew up in one of those houses what they remember. They don't remember lacking. They remember taffy night. She made sure of it. Number 13, nobody made it alone. Now the strategy that lived between the houses. No single kitchen could hold every skill and every surplus. So the block became one big pantry. When a hog was killed, half the neighborhood showed up to work, and everybody walked home with a share. When one garden drowned in squash, squash crossed the road in a dish towel and came back next month as something else. The church supper wasn't just fellowship. It was a food security system with a choir. Economists have a name for it now. The informal economy, mutual aid. Our people had names for it too, being neighbors, doing right. And notice the design, it had memory. Everybody knew who showed up at hog killing, whose dish came over in the hard week. Generosity was banked, and it paid interest for decades. A family alone could be broken by one bad month. A block that pooled its luck? The depression had to beat all of them at once. It never managed it. Number 12, season the pot, don't eat the meat. Watch this move slowly, because it's the single most elegant trick in the whole playbook. One ham hock, 15 cents, mostly bone and skin, into a full pot of beans or greens. Hours on a low fire. And here's what's actually happening in there. The smoke, the salt, the fat, and the collagen are leaving the hock and moving into the liquid until every bean in a 10-cent pound tastes like it was raised on pork. Then she lifts the hock out, picks the little meat off, stirs it back through, and one hock has seasoned 6 bowls, twice, because the same bone often ran a second pot later in the week. The principle, meat as an ingredient, not a serving. Flavor is transferable. A pork chop feeds one, but pork essence feeds everybody. The fancy term now is umami extraction. Her term was put the hock in. Same science. Hers came first, and hers came with cornbread. Number 11, fake the coffee. Some mornings the battle was just feeling human, and a hot dark cup at dawn is human. Real coffee was cash money, so she counterfeited it, and did it well. Chicory root, roasted dark and ground, a trick our folks in Louisiana raised to an art form so good that New Orleans drinks chicory in its coffee to this day, on purpose, by preference. When there was no chicory, parched corn or roasted grain, ground fine, steeped hot. Was it coffee? No. Was it a dark, bitter, steaming cup that let a working man and a working woman start the day with dignity and something warm in the hand every single morning? That's the deeper strategy hiding in the cup. Protect the rituals, not just the calories. A family that keeps its small ceremonies. The morning cup, the Sunday table, doesn't feel poor. Whatever the ledger says. She understood that the depression wanted her spirit, and she declined to serve it. Number 10, jelly from a corn-cob. If you only remember one dish tonight as pure proof of genius, make it this one. Corn-cob jelly. The cobs, after the corn was cut off, the part every other kitchen in America threw straight to the hogs. She boiled, and the sweetness still hiding in those cobs leached out into a golden liquid that, strained and cooked with sugar, set into an amber jelly folks swore tasted close to honey. Say it plain. She made preserves out of garbage. The raw material cost less than nothing. It was already headed for the trash. Spread on a hot biscuit, that jelly was sweetness for the winter, made from the part of the harvest that had no price because nobody imagined it had a use. That's the highest form of the whole game, not stretching a dollar, but creating value where the economy had marked a zero. The ledger just took a big entry on her side. 2 more pauses, then the summit. Last pause, because there's one more machine you need to see before the summit, the one designed to make every strategy on this list necessary. Sharecropping worked like this. The family farmed the landowner's cotton and got paid once a year at settlement. After the landowner subtracted what the family had bought all year, on credit, at his commissary store, at his prices, in his ledger, with his math. The historians in the Library of Congress oral histories tell it over and over. Settlement day came, and somehow the number was always just short. Another year, still behind. The debt was the product, and the New Deal's own farm programs, the historians will tell you, often made it worse. Landowners took the government checks and pushed tenant families off the land entirely. Now run the list back with new eyes. The garden, food outside his ledger, the river fish, the rabbit box, protein he couldn't invoice, the corn-cob jelly, sweetness from what even he threw away. Every single strategy tonight was a way to knead his commissary less, and every item she didn't buy, there was a number he couldn't write against her family at settlement. She wasn't just feeding children. She was starving a machine, quietly, daily, with a skillet. The ledger's nearly full now, and everything from here climbs. Number 9, bread from the ashes. Strip the kitchen down to nothing. No stove, no oven, no skillet even. And she could still make bread. Cornmeal, water, salt, worked into a stiff dough, wrapped in a cabbage leaf or a corn husk, and buried straight in the hot ashes of the fireplace. 40 minutes later, ash cake, charred on the outside, brushed clean, steaming and sweet inside. This is the oldest bread in our whole story. The WPA interviews with our elders born in slavery describe it plain. The fireplace method carried from the days when our people were allowed no tools at all, kept alive by hands and memory alone. By the 1930s, a cabin might have a stove, but the ash cake stayed in the playbook because a fire is free, and a method that needs nothing can never be taken. That's the strategy at its most stripped down. Knowledge is the one asset no landlord, no bank, and no depression could repossess. Bread from ashes. Read the ledger and weep. Number 8, preserve the whole hog. One animal. One cold November day. A full year of eating, if you had the knowledge. Hog killing day was the biggest single deposit in the family's food bank, and she banked every ounce. Hams and shoulders salted and smoked to last a year. Side meat cured for seasoning. Fat rendered into lard for 12 months of frying and biscuits, and the crispy bits left from the rendering. The cracklings folded straight into cornbread. The trotters pickled. The head, hold that thought, it gets its own number. The small scraps, seasoned and packed. Point to the part that got wasted. You can't. There isn't one. Salt, smoke, and rendered fat. Preservation science our people mastered generations before refrigeration, run entirely on skill and community labor. One hog, No icebox, 12 months of meals. The modern food world calls it whole animal butchery and charges a seminar fee. Grandma called it November. Number 7, pickle what you throw away. Everybody's eating watermelon. Now, what did you do with the rind? Because she looked at that thick white rind, the part every picnic in America throws away, and saw a second crop, cubed, soaked in salt water, then simmered in vinegar, sugar, and spice until it turned translucent, amber, sweet sharp, watermelon rind pickles, sealed in jars for the winter shelf. 1 melon, red flesh for the family in July, rind pickles for the table in January. 2 foods, 1 purchase, nothing in the trash. And these weren't apology food, they were bragging food. The jar that came out for company, sweet and spiced and pretty in the light. Fancy food magazines print watermelon rind pickle recipes now, and southern restaurants plate them beside expensive dishes. So catch the pattern one more time because the ledger loves it. What she rescued from the garbage for free. The culinary world now sells back as heritage. She held the patent all along. Number 6, the green gumbo. Down in Louisiana, our folks made a dish that tells the whole strategy in one pot. Gumbo's the herbs, the green gumbo. A gumbo built not on costly meat or seafood, but on greens. Every green the yard, the garden, and the roadside offered all at once. Collards, turnip tops, mustard, spinach, and the wild ones free for the picking, chopped fine and cooked down together into something deep and layered and satisfying. The old Creole tradition, the story goes, held that you'd gain a new friend for every different green in the pot. Some houses counted 7, 9, more. Folklore, and I flag it as folklore. But listen to what the folklore is doing. It turns scavenge every free leaf you can find into a game with a blessing on it. The more free greens, the more luck. That's scarcity, rebranded as abundance by pure narrative genius. A pot of leaves, mostly free, feeding a family in style. The system said empty. The pot said plenty. The pot was right. Number 5, drink the worthless broth, the one from the cold open. When the greens were eaten, there was a dark liquid left in the bottom of the pot. Rich households poured it down the drain. Dishwater, they figured. She served it. Pot liquor. And the joke of the century is what was in it. Hours of simmering had pulled the iron, the calcium, the vitamins out of those greens and into that liquid. The most nourishing thing the greens had to give was sitting in the part the wealthy threw away. Cornbread crumbled in until it drank the pot dry. That was a meal. A warm cup of it for a puny child. That was medicine. And researchers at the black colleges down south were documenting the worth of it, while the fine houses kept pouring theirs out. 2 tables, same greens. The rich family ate the leaves and drained away the nutrition. Her family got both, and the healthier children to show for it. Write that entry in the ledger in ink. The system undervalued what she had, and she collected the difference every single time. Number 4, make a feast out of a fake. Sometimes the smartest move is a bluff, and hers were legendary. Apples scarce or priced out of reach. She built an apple pie with no apples in it. Crackers, simmered in sugar syrup with cream of tartar and a little spice, layered in a crust and baked, and the acid and the texture come out so close to soft apples that guests praised the pie and never knew. Mock apple pie. And that trick is older than the Depression itself. Pioneer cooks ran it as cracker pie clear back in the 1850s, long before any cracker company printed it on a box. Vinegar standing in for lemon, that parched corn coffee from number 11. A whole culinary school of the stand-in. But here's the real strategy. And it's not about crackers. The occasion was non-negotiable. Sunday still got dessert. Company still got pie. The Depression could take the apples. It could not take the institution of Sunday. She defended the ritual with a decoy, and the ritual survived. That's not cooking. That's statecraft. Number 3, use the whole head. Now the move that separated the professionals from everybody else, the one that took nerve, patience, and total command of the craft. The hog's head, the part that made squeamish folks look away, she turned into the most elegant preparation on this entire list. Hog's head cheese, simmered for hours with onion, bay, vinegar, and pepper until every scrap of meat let go, picked clean by hand, seasoned bold, packed in a pan, covered with its own broth. And here's the chemistry, chilled overnight, where the natural gelatin from the bone sets the whole thing into a firm, sliceable loaf. No gelatin packet. The head brings its own. Sliced thin on bread with mustard and hot sauce, sold sometimes by the slice for extra income, because yes, this was also a product. The French call this style of craft charcuterie and speak it in reverent tones. Our grandmothers were running it in cabin kitchens, off the part of the animal priced at nearly nothing. Same skill, better story, 2 entries left, and the ledger's about to close. Number 2, turn poison into supper. Everything tonight has been clever. This one is dangerous, and that's exactly the point. Poke salad. Pokeweed grows wild and free in every ditch and fence row in the South, and the plant is poisonous. Roots, berries, mature stalks, genuinely toxic. And our mothers ate it every spring, safely, for generations, because the knowledge was exact and it was law. Only the young spring leaves. Boil them. Pour that water off. Boil fresh. Pour off again. Some houses. A 3rd time. Only then into the skillet with bacon grease and a scrambled egg. The boils pull the toxins out with the water. Miss a step and you'd earn a miserable night. Follow the law and you had a free spring green. First fresh thing after a long winter. At the exact moment the pantry ran lowest. Now understand what that knowledge was. A fence. The unprepared couldn't touch that free food. The ditch was effectively locked, and her family held the only key. Passed mother to daughter, exact as a recipe for medicine, because it was one. The economy priced food. It could not price what she knew. And what she knew fed her children out of a poison ditch every April. 1 entry left in the ledger. And before I write it, I need to tell you about a Thursday evening and a pan. Because here's the truth, the first 24 entries have been circling. Through the 1930s, for a huge share of black women, the only work the economy allowed was in a white family's kitchen, cooking their meals, cleaning their house, raising, in every practical sense, their children. For wages, the historian Rebecca Sharpless documents at a few dollars a week, sunrise to past supper, 6 days, sometimes 7. She cooked abundance all day for another woman's table. Then she rode home to figure out her own. Every strategy on this countdown, every stretched pot, every rescued rind, every jar, she executed after 10 and 12 hours of executing somebody else's supper first. The genius you've been watching tonight was her second shift. And the wage was rigged, and the Social Security skipped her, and the ledger at the commissary lied, so she balanced the books her own way, which brings us to the pan. Number one, the service pan. And I need you to hear this one with your whole chest. In the world of domestic work, there was an old, open, secret institution our people called the service pan.